Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the 34th Annual Peer Mediation Conference, Adventures in Peer Mediation. The Peer Mediation Conference has been bringing together you peer mediators for over 30 years. This is the first year the conference has gone virtual to connect peer mediators around Hawaii and beyond, as well as others aspiring to develop their own peer mediation program. My name is Jose Barzola from the Matsuna Institute for Peace at the University of Hawaii in Manoa. This year's Peer Mediation Conference is brought to you as a collaborative of 22 different organizations around Hawaii that support this conference that is spread out throughout the month of April. The Peer Mediation Conference consists of an opening panel, 16 skill workshops, and a closing panel. This is actually our last skills workshops, and tomorrow will be a closing panel. But you can still register for that at matsunainstitute.eventbrite.com. Today's event will focus on the skills workshop on peer mediation simulation with Maggie Jones and Sage Andrews. And as always, Shelly Andrews is with us as well. So thank you so much to the Kailua High School peer mediators. Thank you for joining us to learn about peer mediation skills, learn how to resolve most issues by learning how to conduct a mediation session. And if time permits, you may have time to practice being a peer mediator as well. And to get us started, I'm going to turn it over to the Kailua High School peer mediators. Who is joining us today?
Just getting it started. Okay, here we go. So peer mediation simulation. So we do have a Jamboard. If you guys want to check out our Jamboard. Oh, I forgot to get the link. Could you put the link in for me, Jose?
Yep, I can just.
Sorry, so here's our Jamboard, and if you have a chance, if you can either put in the chat or the Jamboard, sorry for the little delay there, what are the reasons you decided to come to our workshop today?
I'm a little bit slow. Sorry, I don't have the presentation up right now, so I'm gonna have to.
No problem, take your time, guys. Okay, and then Sage, you mind taking the next one?
Yep, so if you would like to follow along, you can go to the PTP website. There's the link in the slideshow. Scroll to the bottom, click on the Kailua High School Peer PEP Handbook, and then don't forget to give us feedback on our Jamboard, which has just been linked in the chat.
Awesome, thanks so much. And again, you can follow along in the Jamboard too. I know it's a lot of different ways, but bear with us. All right. Maggie, this is you, or I don't know.
Yeah, it's me. Okay, so the big question for our presentation, and I guess the thing in general, is what is peer mediation? Which, of course, we have shared the Jamboard for you guys to help us answer that question. What are your guys' thoughts on it? What is peer mediation? And then we'll go over some of those.
You know, I might just share the video too while they think, because I know you got a little bit of a delay. So this is actually a little taste of peer mediation at our school, Kailua High, about 2 years ago. Sadly, all these kids have graduated. They're no longer with us, but they do make a cute video. So let's watch it.
Told me the world is gonna roll me. I ain't the sharpest tool in the shed. She was looking kind of dumb with her finger and her thumb in the shape of an L on her forehead. Well, the years start coming and they don't start coming. Back to the rules and I hit the ground running. It makes sense not to live for fun. Your brain gets smart, but your head gets dumb. So much to do, so much to see. So what's wrong with taking the back streets? You'll never know if you don't go. But right now, never shine if you don't grow. Hey now, you're an all-star. If you came on, go play. Hey now, you're a rock star. In the show on, get paid. It's a cool place, and they say it gets colder. You cool up now, wait till you get older. The media man begs to give up, judging by the heart in the satellite picture. The ice is getting pretty thin. The water's getting warm, so you might as well swim. The world's on fire, how about yours? That's the way I know it, and I'll never get bored. Hey now, you're an all-star. Get your game on, go play. Hey now, you're a rock star. Get the show on, get paid.
So that's our video. Sorry for the bad music. Here's another example though, peer mediation from another school. Again, this is kind of like a dated sort of movie, but just kind of give you a taste of what it would look like.
A lot of the mediations that we have involve like, you know, a boyfriend girlfriend conflict, and then you have your you know, just like macho thing where you fight.
What always happens when a student is mediated is that they'll get in trouble for doing something and they'll report to our assistant principal's office, who will then tell them, all right, you have two options. You can either deal with me or I can send you to student mediation. And a lot of kids don't know what student mediation is, but to them anything is better than having to deal with an administrator. We are not here to be a judge. We're not here to take sides. Our role as a mediator is just to try to help you to reach an agreement that you're both comfortable with. So would one of you like to start?
Started when he stares at me in the hallway, thinks he's like tough or whatever. And then like I had confrontation with his friend and then he wants to get involved in it.
First of all, me and my friends, we don't think we own the school. He's a little freshman. He walks in like he's all big and everything, like everyone's supposed to be scared of him. And how are we supposed to react to that? We're supposed to defend ourselves.
What do you guys think that you can do to try to prevent this from happening again?
He can watch his mouth. Oh no, I'm serious. I think that like I can do the same thing too. Just like watch what we both say to each other.
The next step that we're going to take after this is we have written agreement. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to write down your rules.
Not stare at each other in the hallway. Don't talk anything about me or my friends.
We're going to keep this on file. So if there's ever another problem that occurs between the two of you, which hopefully there won't be, we can pull this out of the file and you can take a look at it. Now the mediation is finished. This is going to remain completely confidential.
Okay.
Thank you
All
very
right, so
much.
thanks very much.
It's still an awkward feeling passing him in the hallway, but I think it was a good decision overall because it stopped us from fighting, and at the time it stopped two groups of people from fighting. So it was in the better for the whole school.
A lot of the skills that I've learned in mediation, like listening and just being able to communicate better with other people, has helped me kind of maintain my sanity when I'm in a condition where it requires close contact with people that I don't always want to be right next to.
You can bring that, you know, to your friends, in relationships with your friends and also with your parents and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
I think one of the nicest things about mediation is when someone comes up to you afterwards and just says, maybe not even thank you, but just says hi, or, you know, holds the door for you, or just smiles at you, and you know that you've made a positive impact in somebody else's life. And it's a really good feeling.
Yay, so hopefully that gave you a good taste of what mediation is. And now we're kind of just going to talk a little bit about some of the similarities or differences that you may have noticed. Sorry, Lena, is this your slide? Sorry.
We're all gonna kind of go through it. I personally think that it's interesting to see the way it plays out versus the idea of it playing out. And I'd like to know what other people think too. I don't know.
Anybody want to put anything in the Jamboard or the chat? Just what is peer mediation? Maybe similarities or differences that you saw between the two videos? Go back to it is towards the end of the afternoon. So why don't we just go ahead and go through the whole thing? So basically when we're talking about mediation or doing a mediation training, well, we start with the mediation process. So this is an outline of the whole process, and seeing it for me visually like this just helps me as a mediator. And also students, if you're learning on this, or even adults, if you're learning how to become a mediator, seeing it in this visual format always helps. So they always starts with the two mediators and the two disputants. And we start off with introductions, and we're going to go through all the different steps in the next few minutes. There's an opening statement, there's ground rules, and there's the disputant statements. So we give, just like in the video, that second video that was shown, each of the disputants has a chance to kind of say what their side of what happened. Then there's the mediators caucus. So they'll kind of think about what's going on their own. The two mediators kind of talking about, hey, who do we want to talk to first? Maybe they want to talk to one of the people because they think that they're curious about what that person's side of the story is. So they'll meet with them separately, the disputants separately, because sometimes we can get more information from disputants when they're talking alone. Maybe there's some information that they want to keep secret from the other person, so we would meet with them separately. The first top of this diamond is always considering the past and then also the present. The mediators will caucus again, and they'll talk about, okay, so now we're going to be talking about where we are going to go. And that happened really quickly in that second video where they go to the agreement writing. And that's kind of what happens in this second caucus, is they're getting to like, how are you going to resolve this? And so the second part of the diamond is really dealing with the future. How are we going to resolve this? So again, the two mediators will meet separately with the two, each disputant. And hopefully at this point, they'll be coming up with the way that they're going to resolve it. In that video, it happened very quickly again. Sometimes mediations can go very quickly. They already kind of know we're not going to look at each other. We're not going to say mean things to each other. That's how we're going to resolve that. The mediators will caucus again, and then they'll basically write up the agreement again with the two disputants and the mediators. Hopefully that agreement holds and everything's great. And this is basically another breakdown to it. And again, we're just going to take it one step at a time. So Lena, you want to take the next slide?
Cool. So of course, the first step is going to be the preparation by the mediators. So they're somehow faced with a problem and they're told, okay, you're going to be doing a mediation today. First, you got to pick up your mediation materials. That's, of course, the description, what needs to happen, where you're going to go through, paper, especially if you're going to write that contract, for notes, that sort of thing. To check the room that you'll be doing the mediation in for privacy and kind of less noise so that you guys have the lead and the conversation and there's less distractions, and arranging the furniture for what's best, either if it's like just desks or if it's just chairs, because you want to make sure everyone can communicate openly in the room. And then the last thing that the mediators need to do to prepare is to decide on the responsibilities that each mediator will have, whether it be who they talk to, who they split up with, what their lead will be when they start in the group conferences, that sort of thing.
Yay, thanks. Sage?
Next thing you're going to do is you're going to you're going to have the introduction of both the mediators and the disputants. You're going to show the disputants to their seats, and then the opening statement can be said by the mediators. Most of the time, this will probably start off with something like, welcome to the mediation process. We hope this situation can be worked out. Thanks for trying mediation. This mediation process is voluntary and confidential. Mediators are neutral and do not take sides. We are not trying to find out who's right or wrong. We are here to guide you and help you to come up with your own solution to this problem. We will be taking notes, but notes will be destroyed at the end of the session. Describe the entire mediation process. So describe what you're going to be doing in the mediation section, like what is in the diamond. And actually, I really like what somebody said in chat that this diamond was actually developed in Hawaii, which I did not know that. I think that's really cool. And then the next step would be mediation ground rules, which would go as the following: no interrupting, no name calling, no threatening, no swearing, no fighting. If illegal and or life-threatening information is given, we will have to reveal that information to the school authorities. The mediation process works best when both disputants try to be as thoughtful as possible. So instead of trying to cut somebody off to say your side. Try to listen to them, and maybe you'll learn something that you didn't know previously about that situation. Do you understand and agree to these ground rules? And then do you have any questions? If not, let's begin.
Awesome. Maggie, you want to take the next one?
Yeah, so that first meeting for the mediators is going to be, what do we know from listening to the disputant statements, and then clarify any of their information revealed if necessary. What seems to be the problem? What is the issue? Why are we here today? And then how do the disputants feel? How do we as the mediators feel? How can we approach this? How can we solve it? Especially breaking down the feelings that the disputants have is going to be really important, because that's the only way that you're going to know what they want so that you can solve it. So then using what we know, we need to figure out where are the gaps, what do we need to ask more about, and then how do we get there? So who should we talk to first in the separate sessions, and then what are some of the questions that we should ask so that when we're all back together, we can solve the issue.
Yay, okay. And then Sage?
The next thing that we would do would be the separate sessions. So mediators will each disputant separately. Sessions will deal with the past and present, so not only the current situation, but also maybe any previous conflicts that had occurred. They will explore the positions and interests, any hidden agendas. Mediators restate and summarize, which was talked about in a previous conference if you missed that. And then we're supposed to find the information they want to keep secret. So when we go back to the main meeting, we're not saying anything that wasn't supposed to be said, and have disputants consider answers to these 3 questions while outside. How would you like to see this problem solved? What would you like to see blank do to make that happen? Blank is in the other person. And what are you willing to do to make that happen?
Awesome. And then, oh, I think we got switched around. Maggie, do you mind going over positions and interests one more time? Sorry.
I can absolutely do that. Okay, so this is the mediator's iceberg. So just like an iceberg, there's stuff that you see and then there's stuff that you don't. So the stuff you see is the positions. So a demand or preferred course of action. For example, like in the video, I want them to stop looking at me in the hallway. That's their position. It's easy to spot because it's the main issue. Usually they're going to express their point of view more, but usually it's only a small part of the problem. In conflict, people's positions are often like at odds, and they are rooted in interests, which is, again, the part you don't see. So underneath, where needs, interests, and then, of course, the shared interests, where you're going to find the resolve is, interests are the reason behind the position. Interests are often harder to see, more below the surface, but account for a large part of the problems, and they can build up into the position, into the conflict. So people often have interests in common, but when those are uncovered, when asking like why questions, they also rooted in needs can be figured out together to find that resolution and move forward.
Yay, awesome. And then Sage, you want to take this last one or second to last one?
Yep, so the second to last step would be the mediators meeting. So it would be to further clarify what has been revealed. What are some of the possible directions the mediators could take? Are there any disputants ready to discuss possible solutions, future options? So that would be like, are they ready to get back together and find an answer to their issue? If yes, then proceed to the next step. If not, what additional information do we need?
Yay, and almost the end. Maggie.
Okay, so for the second separate sessions, the mediators are going to meet with each disputant separately to discuss the future. So this is the part where you're going to focus on that resolve, which we did see in both videos, as the chat pointed out. So the mediators are going to ask the disputants to give their answers to the 3 questions. Sorry, from the first separate session. So that's going to be, how do you want to see this resolved? What will you do to make that happen? What would you like the other person to do? So then again, optional is the reality testing. You're going to ask what might happen if the conflict is not resolved. Of course, this is optional because it's going to bring forth some possible conflict in the future, but it can also help resolve or get in front of that conflict before it even happens. Okay, so the mediators are going to restate and summarize the whole situation and solution mainly, because this is focusing on the future. You're going to find out what information can be shared with the other disputant, and then after that, you're probably going to meet again.
Yay. Okay. Sorry, then this is definitely the last one. Sage?
So finally, we're going to discuss, it's going to be discussion of options. Mediators will summarize options discussed and point out areas. Oh wait, sorry, was that just done?
Oh yeah, no, you're right. This is right. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So resuming, mediators will summarize options discussed and point out areas of agreement. Try to have disputants state agreements, speak to each other rather than just to the mediators. Clear up any misunderstandings. It's a healing process to hopefully see that these guys won't have any issues in the future, or at least try to prevent further issues. And then, are you ready to write up an agreement? And the agreement writing would be to use correct names, so your full name first and last, simple, clear, specific statements, use disputants' words. Both disputants take responsibility, balanced. Read statements to disputants while writing them. Check, is this agreement realistic, partial, lasting? Make follow-up agreements, optional. Disputants and mediators sign agreement, tear up notes. Thank and congratulate disputants and each other.
Awesome. And then here's just an example of the agreement form. And again, just making sure that you spell their names right. It's so important, their grade, the time. Hopefully we'll be able to do more of these mediations in the future when we actually have time in class again, but we would write up the agreement here. In the case of the last video, it would be, I will not look at, we will try not to give each other stink eye in the hallway, and we will all make sure that not to put down each other or to tease each other. And then they would both sign off on it, and then both mediators would sign off on it. And again, this is what it looks like. So this is, again, part of the materials that the mediators have, and it's used when we practice simulations in the mediation session. So I don't know, do you want to just read this last one and then I'll play the video, Elena?
Absolutely. Yeah. So big question again. What can you do personally to become a better mediator and or negotiator? So maybe you'll listen better, try not to rush to judge others, or just try to see things from another's perspective when you disagree. So let's watch a video that can help us do that.
A simple parable delivers the key message in Getting to Yes. It's the story of an orange. To be precise, one orange and two people who both want it. They argue about ownership for a while and eventually decide to divide it, half each. And so they separate, feeling they achieved the fairest solution. What they don't know is why the other person needed the orange. If they had, then the solution would have been quite different, because one wanted the peel to use in baking a cake and the other wanted the fruit to eat. Had they known that, they each would have gotten twice as much, and they most certainly would have got to yes a whole lot more quickly. If you haven't heard that story, maybe you didn't see it coming. That's because in negotiations, we focus on our positions, as in I want the orange, rather than the underlying interests that drive those positions, as in I want to bake an orange cake. It sounds so obvious when it's explained, yet we persist in taking positions which tend to be I win, you lose confrontations, often missing solutions that best address the interests of both sides. If we can see our way to take the interests-driven route, it's so much easier to get to yes. The journey to yes. The idea is to constantly search for mutual gains that aren't immediately identifiable. For example, suppose a city plans to double the taxes paid by a local refinery. The city's interest is in getting more money for civic development. But since it can't keep calling on the oil company to foot the bill, it needs to broaden its tax base.
The oil firm, on the other hand, wants to expand, and getting a plastics plant to move close by would help with their plans. But the plastics manufacturers would almost certainly be put off by the prospect of high taxes. The shared interest is that both the city and the oil company want industrial expansion. Solutions might include a tax holiday for incoming businesses, a joint campaign to attract new investment, or a reduction in taxes for companies that expand their local activities. On the other hand, failure to identify these common interests could result in soured relationships where everyone loses. The company could slow production due to rising costs, and the city's citizens could lose jobs, creating more strain on the city's already tight resources. 3 points about shared interests are worth remembering. First, many shared interests are often concealed or never uncovered in negotiation. You have to work hard to identify them. Second, there are only opportunities if you find a way of turning them into a shared goal. And third, focusing on them can make negotiations smoother and friendlier. Even differing interests may offer opportunities. Think of that orange story we began with. The interests of the two people were quite different, but could have been dovetailed together to provide a neat solution. Recall the nursery rhyme about Jack Sprat, who could eat no fat, and his wife, who could eat no lean. Get the picture? Getting to yes is all about identifying what's really important for each party, dealing with the differences and finding common ground. It's achieved by brainstorming and trying to view issues from each other's perspectives. This process produces a range of imaginative solutions to satisfy the interests of both sides to create a true win-win solution.
I hope you liked that video. If you haven't seen it before, just another way of explaining things. Oh, we have some things here in our Jamboard. Thank you so much. Do you find that there is formal peer mediation and then skills you use informal outside of meetings? How has that been part of your school culture? Oh, this is a hard one to ask. Can I put this on you, Lena? Do you mind answering that question, or can you try?
I can do this. Okay. So yeah, of course, if you're sticking directly to like the handbook, the peer mediation handbook, the all the lessons we do, even referencing the slides or the classes we have every week, there's absolutely a formal way of going through things. There's even like scripts. In the presentation we showed you with those steps, there are specific steps. But a lot of times when I'm dealing either with family members like my brothers, or if I'm dealing with peers who maybe are having trouble when we're doing a group project or something, it's really easy to be able to use some of those communication skills or ask open-ended questions, or to say, hey, well, let's look at this from a different way, or how can everyone be happy? If we're looking like doing a group project or something, and one of my peers is very much good at art, and then someone's really good at drawing, and then someone else is just really good at doing the research part of it, then maybe instead of looking at it like, oh, no one's doing their part, we can say, okay, which part can someone do so that we have the best outcome? So I do tend to use a lot of the methods, even if it isn't in a formal way. Yeah.
Love it. That's such a great answer. Thanks so much. I don't know if you have anything to add on to that, Sage. I don't know. Ever use
No,
this?
I completely agree with the group projects. I think it's so like critical. It's not in just group projects, but in life, just to be able to utilize what people are good at and what they want to do, because it just makes life that much easier for everybody. Like, I know people who are like amazing at decorating like slideshows and poster boards, and I cannot do that for the life of me. And I just dread doing it. So if I can find somebody else to do that, and I can like do the research or write a bibliography for them, that's great. That's what I love to do. So I think just like talking to people in general and taking those skills that we can get from not only the conferences, but just peer mediation in general can just be so helpful to not only now when I'm in school, but after that when I'm in my job or in college.
Awesome. You guys are great. And what is this? The purpose of the agreement. What does it look like when the resolution doesn't happen in one meeting? I can answer that. Usually it does happen in one meeting, but a few times we will have some kind of disagreement where we can't resolve it. A lot of times it happens with really close friends. They really want to be friends, but they just can't get past that argument. And so it might take multiple steps of just meeting again and just being patient. A lot of times though, when we can't get to that agreement, maybe the agreement is just to decide not to hang out with each other and just call it a day, and they can't be friends. And it's sad, I think, for them to get to that point. But yeah, sometimes it takes many meetings for them to finally get to that place. Yeah. I don't know. Did you have something you wanted to add to that, Lena? I don't know. Just in general, I think friends in high school, sometimes it's rough.
Yeah, I can add. I think this actually relates to the school community question as well, is the way that programs at our school and things work is when we introduce these ideas, a lot of times it's part of maybe the bulletin, or it's announced, or someone knows someone that's part of the program, and through that people learn the skills. So even if that resolution doesn't get to the exact point that would make both parties happy, they both walk away with a better understanding of either what the other person wants, how to get what you want, how to ask questions, how to use these skills that they've like kind of subconsciously been taught when relating with other people and even themselves. And that's what I think is important, and even if it is a different resolution.
Yay, thanks for adding. Okay, and then just checking to see if you guys had anything in here. Ooh, how do we invite people in, recruit? Honestly, I just put something in the bulletin, and kids that I see in the hallway, I just try my best to recruit them. Sort of like, yeah, I don't know. I think I met Maggie one day just in the hall. I don't know, just saw you. And I was like, don't you want to be a mediator? Word of mouth. And then when do you schedule mediations? You know, right now we don't have mediations, but in the past it was at lunchtime, after school. Sometimes it would be during class if a mediator had a time period or like a class that was like an elective and they could get out of it, then that would be what would work. And then there are assertion skills part of your peer mediation training. Yes, that was one of the parts that we kind of covered back before. We actually talked about conflict style, and we also talked about, help me here, I don't know, Lena, do you remember the other ones we presented?
I know conflict style, and then the other one we went over most recently was about open-ended questions. Yeah. But mostly it's just about that communication. I think that for assertion skills, it's kind of a yes and no that it's part of the mediation training, because if someone has like a conflict style that's very aggressive, or they specifically know what they want, it's very important to try and dial back that assertion, to try and listen. Because if you listen to the other person's point of view, you can get to a better point like entirely in the conversation, rather than just asserting yours and shutting out all other options. So that's personally how I see it, is that it's a mixture of both.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Sage, I don't know if you have anything else, or if anybody else has other questions, anyone want to add on? I think I've been through the Jamboard.
Yeah, I completely agree with Maggie and what she's saying. I don't know if I can really add anything else to it. She's just really great at summing that kind of stuff up.
Maggie, we don't want you to graduate, but we do want you to graduate and move on, because we just love you so much. Thank you so much for helping us with this and presenting today, and Sage as well. Thank you.
Thank you again. I think we don't have any questions. It just goes to show how thorough you've been. So thank you so much for everything you've done. I'm gonna just try to wrap things up because we're a little bit over time here, but it's quite okay. And let me see, just my final words as usual. Thanks so much, Maggie and Sage, for providing us such amazing skills workshops and for sharing just, you know, everything this past month and your insights into peer mediation. I gotta let people know, like, these are being recorded. It's being posted on our Matsunaga YouTube channel, and I've been getting great feedback about it. And so I really look forward to see in time. I mean, you all are gonna go on to some amazing achievements in life. So I'm kind of looking forward to, like, I don't know, 10 years out, you can look back and these recordings will be out there, and I look forward to see what the impact has been. Because going back to something Shelley said, and I think she should get a poster or something, t-shirts, peer mediation will save the world. There's a lot of impact that can be done. And so thank you so much just for your kindness, your passion, and all that you do and that you continue to do. Shelley, thank you for guiding them along and for being such a conduit in everything that you're doing there. So thank you for being such a light. Last but not least, thank you to everyone for joining today's webinar. We deeply appreciate your interest and support in joining us to learn about peer mediation programs throughout Hawaii at the 34th Annual Peer Mediation Conference, Adventures in Peer Mediation.